Hello, in this video, we will demonstrate the different ways a user is able to register a new patient within the eClinicalWorks application. We will also discuss how to access the patient demographics. Begin by navigating to the patient lookup window. We'll first look at the Quick Registration and Quick Appointment feature. This will open the new appointment walk-in. Here, we will enter the patient demographic information, including the patient's cell phone number. Users can then check off the Text Enable option if the patient consents to receive text messages. Over to the right, users will enter the visit information. The date and time field will auto-populate to today's date and time that the new appointment walk-in window was opened. Users can then make changes to the facility, appointment provider, and appointment resource as needed. Next, select the visit type, then enter the visit status and the reason for today's visit. Users can then click Save or Save and Send Check-in SMS. A toast message will appear indicating the appointment was created successfully. It should be noted for the Quick Registration and Quick Appointment button to be present within the patient lookup window. This must be selected within the practice defaults. Next, we will take a look at our Quick Registration. The Quick Registration allows users to register patients in the eClinicalWorks application without having to fill out mandatory fields. It should be noted that this feature is enabled by an item key. Please contact eClinicalWorks support and refer to item key code 0581_UK. Enter the patient demographic information, then enter the chief complaint. The chief complaint will appear in the reason field within the appointment window. From here, note the in-scope or out-of-scope option. In-scope should be used for patients that are treated at the clinic. For example, if a patient walks in without an appointment for a headache but is treated at the clinic, this is considered in-scope. In-scope patients are added within the lookup window with basic demographic information. Out-of-scope should be used for patients that the clinic is unable to treat. For example, this could be a patient that walks into the clinic with chest pain or stroke-like symptoms that the clinic sends to the emergency room. The patient would be considered out of scope and will not display in the patient lookup window. However, the patient information will be saved on the back end of the eClinicalWorks database, but users are prevented from accessing the information. It should be noted the out-of-scope option will be selected by default when accessing the Quick Registration window. To have the in-scope option selected by default, please reach out to support and reference item key code 0491_DMJ. To the right-hand side of our Quick Registration, there's the Patient Seen option. These will go in tandem with the out-of-scope or in-scope, reason, and sent to fields. If the patient was not seen, the response should be set to no and marked as out of scope. If the patient was not treated at the clinic, select the reason from the drop-down list provided and then select where the patient was sent to. Once done, click Save. Next, we have the New Patient. The New Patient option will open a new patient demographics window. On the top left corner, this will show an existing picture of the patient or allow users to add one. I have the ability to upload a file, use a camera, or scan in a picture. The trash can icon will delete the picture. Once a photo is uploaded, the patient picture will display in the Demographics, Patient Hub, and Patient Dashboard. Below, we'll note that certain information is marked as mandatory, indicated by a red asterisk. If any of the mandatory information is not filled out, the system will prevent users from saving the patient information. To update the mandatory fields within the Patient Demographics window, users can navigate to the main menu, ECW menu, Patient tab, Configure Demographic Mandatory Fields. Within our new patient demographic information, we will start by entering the patient's last name, first name, previous name, and preferred name if different than their given name. We will then navigate to the address information. The address listed here should be the best mailing address for the patient. We'll note that there is a Validate button. When selected, this will open the address validation pop-up window. Here, users can see the entered address, and if there is a correction suggested, it will appear under the suggested address. Click the radio button next to the appropriate option, then click Apply. The address validation service is provided by UPS. We'll also note the Address Manager option, which can be used to keep track of multiple addresses for the patient. This can include a current address and previous address. Next, enter the phone information for the patient and email. Users can then voice, text enable, and web enable the patient by selecting the text bubble icon to the right of the extension field or selecting Options, Web Enable. This will open the patient communication settings. Here, users will see the username and email, can then select Web Enable, then pick to voice enable or text enable the patient in the patient's preferred language. Additionally, on the right-hand side, users can select the reminder types that this patient wishes to receive. The other mandatory fields within our patient demographic window include our date of birth and sex. Below, users can also enter the Social Security number. If the patient does not wish to provide this, select the Not Provided option, then the reason that the Social Security number was not provided. The SOGI button will allow users to select the sexual orientation and gender identity of the patient. Additionally, users can select the sex assigned at birth and the patient's pronouns. There will be pre-configured options listed. However, there is also a free text area to specify if the options provided are not applicable to this patient. We then have the responsible party. Click the Select option above the field. We can then select the responsible party as self, another patient, or guarantor. If a user selects self, this means the patient is the responsible party. Another patient means that another patient that is currently registered within the eClinicalWorks system is responsible, or the guarantor is meaning someone else other than the patient or another patient is responsible. Once done, click OK. Then select the relation if not entered. If the responsible party is also the emergency contact for the patient, users can select Set Emergency Contact. In this case, since the responsible party is the patient themselves, we will click Add. Here, users have the option to either select from another patient, select from a guarantor, or manually enter in the emergency contact information. If the patient is a minor, indicate if the emergency contact is the guardian. And then we will want to indicate if their emergency contact has permission under HIPAA to access the patient medical information. Once done, click OK to save. The parent info will provide space to capture information for the mother or father for a minor. The Family Hub will show any contacts or patients that are regarded as a family member to this patient. Any account balance information will appear under the emergency contact. Below, we'll note the last annual visit option. If this were a minor, this would show as a well child visit feature. This will let the user know if the patient is past due. On the right-hand side of the patient demographic window, there are some additional fields to be entered. This includes provider information such as the primary care, referring provider, and rendering provider. Additionally, we can enter in the patient's preferred language, race, ethnicity, and characteristics. There is also the release of information field. it is important that this section is filled out. Click the ellipses to the right to capture the different responses and enter in the information to the field. We then have the RX history consent, signature date, advanced directive information, employer or student status, default facility for the patient, and any additional notes. At the bottom of the window, we'll note that there are different tabs available. The first option is Insurance. Click Add to open the patient insurance details. Enter the insurance name, select the insurance from the list, then select the sequence source of payment, coverage date, and subscribing information. Over to the right, users can enter copay information if available. Once done, click OK to save. To update the insurance information, select the name from the list, then click Update. If the patient does not have insurance, mark them as self-pay. We then have pharmacies. Click Add to open the pharmacy lookup database. We can search for the patient pharmacy by the options provided, select it, then click OK. A green check mark under the E column will note that a pharmacy is enabled to receive e-prescriptions. If the pharmacy accepts electronically controlled substance prescriptions, a check mark will appear under the C column. And if it is a mail order pharmacy, a green check mark will appear under the M column. We can add as many pharmacies as we need to the patient demographics. It is important to make sure that one of the pharmacies is indicated as the primary pharmacy, which will be indicated with the green check mark under the P column. Next, navigate to our contacts. To add any additional contacts other than the emergency contact, click Add. This will open a window that is in the same format as the emergency contact. Users can select from another existing patient, guarantor, or again, manually fill in the contact information. Users can then indicate if this is a family member or not. We then have the attorneys and case management information. These can be added in the same fashion by navigating to the appropriate tabs and clicking Add. Depending on the ancillary modules that are enabled, users may see the Circle of Care option and Employer option. Same thing, navigate to the appropriate tab and click Add as needed. Note that the lower portion of this window can be expanded by clicking the arrow to the right. We then have the Additional Information option. This area captures additional details such as the street address if different from the patient's mailing address. We can also select if messages can be left and more. If the patient were to pass, this information can be documented under the Deceased section. To the right, users can enter employer address information. If there is a default lab or diagnostic imaging company that is required by the patient's insurance for orders, this can be entered here. Additional options such as marking the patient as inactive, excluding them from the registry search, marking them as native, and more are also on this window. Over to the right, we have structured data. This information is reportable and can be built using the Custom button. The lower portion of the window allows users to access patient documents where we can scan and attach any of the corresponding documentation to the patient. Back on the main patient demographic window, users can access global alerts, billing alerts, insurance alerts, meaningful use alerts, payment plan information, and if there are any statement holds by selecting the Alert option. Miscellaneous information is for any additional information to capture for the patient, but it should be noted miscellaneous information is not reportable. The Options button allows users to access the Medic Scanner option if enabled, web enable the patient, view patient logs, view the fee schedule logs, generate logs, view the registry settings, and print the patient demographics. If enabled for e-payments, users will also have the option to add a card on file. The different modalities available for the card on file feature, such as kiosk and paying at the front office desk, can be used while physically at a practice. A credit card added by an eClinicalWorks user on the EMR side is considered as on-site. A card added in other modalities such as Patient Portal, Check-in, Helo app, etc. is considered an online card. We then have the PSAC option. This is for Patient Security Access Control. This can be used if the patient information should be limited to certain individuals. From here, we can select either the PSAC group that this patient should belong to, or the users, including provider or staff, that should have access to this patient information. Once done, click Save. New patients can also be added by copying the information from an existing patient. This can be useful when creating a new patient with a family member already in the system. First, we would search our existing patient, then select the drop-down and click Copy to New Patient. This will pull the last name of the patient we searched. We can then enter the first name, date of birth, and sex of the patient. Note the last name can be edited if needed. Once we have the demographic information selected, we can then check off the options below. This includes to copy the emergency contact, copy the insurance, and copy the responsible party. Uncheck any of the options to prevent the information from being copied from the existing patient to the new patient. Once done, click Copy. The system will then create the patient profile and automatically open the patient demographic window so that additional information can be entered. Last, there is the Medic Scan New Patient option. In order for this option to display, the Medic Scanner must be enabled with plugins as well as set up with the software downloaded. If available, users will be able to scan the driver's license of a patient, which will capture the patient information and automatically fill those fields under the new patient registration window. That concludes this video. Thanks for watching.